Imagine walking into your own home, your sanctuary, after a long week, only to be met with a venomous scream. Why is this parasite here? Get the hell out. That was my welcome. My brother-in-law, Kevin, stood there, his face twisted in pure contempt, pointing at me like I was a stray dog. But what happened next? Well, let's just say he and my entire family regretted every single word. Why is this parasite here? Get the hell out. His words hit me like a physical blow, a harsh slap across the face. I stood frozen in the doorway of my own beach house, my weekend bag still hanging from my shoulder, staring at this man. Behind him, my property was overrun. His parents, his two brothers, and what looked like their entire extended family were sprawled across my furniture, drinking from my glasses, their shoes kicked off on my pristine white carpet. It was a scene of utter chaos, a complete invasion. My name is Claire, and I'm 32 years old. I work as a marine biologist in Charleston, South Carolina. For the past decade, I've poured my life into building a career I'm genuinely proud of. And this beach house, the one I was being screamed at in, wasn't just some rental. It was mine. I bought it 3 years ago with money I'd painstakingly saved and carefully invested. It was my reward, the tangible fruit of years of grueling work, countless sacrifices, and dreams held tight. It sits right on the coast near Myrtle Beach, just a 2-hour drive from Charleston, and it's always been my sanctuary, my escape. But looking at Kevin's furious face, you'd think I was the one trespassing, the uninvited guest in someone else's home. "Excuse me," I managed to say, my voice surprisingly steady despite the cold, simmering rage building in my chest. "You heard me," he snapped back. Kevin, my sister Jennifer's husband of 5 years, had always been difficult. Now he was a full-blown tyrant. "We're having a family gathering here. Nobody invited you." I blinked, trying to process the sheer audacity. "Kevin," I said, my voice rising slightly, "this is my house. I own it." "Yeah, well, Jennifer said we could use it this weekend," he shot back, crossing his arms, a smug look spreading across his face. "So, unless you want to ruin everyone's good time, you should leave." My gaze swept past him, searching desperately for my sister. Jennifer. She was standing by the kitchen island, her eyes glued to her phone, actively refusing to meet my gaze. She knew. She absolutely knew I was coming here this weekend. I'd mentioned it to her just 2 days ago, during our mother's birthday dinner. She'd smiled, she'd nodded, she'd told me to have a great time. And then, apparently, she'd handed out keys to Kevin's entire family like my sanctuary was some kind of cheap vacation rental. "Jennifer," I called out, my voice cutting through the casual chatter of Kevin's family. "Can we talk?" She finally looked up, her expression carefully neutral, almost practiced. "Claire, I didn't think you'd actually come. You're always so busy with work." "I told you I was coming," I retorted, the anger finally breaking through. "I specifically said I needed this weekend to decompress." She shrugged, a casual, dismissive gesture that made my blood absolutely boil. "Well, Kevin's family needed a place to stay, and this house just sits empty most of the time. I figured you wouldn't mind." "You figured wrong." Kevin stepped closer, his jaw tight. "Look, we've got 15 people here who drove hours to get to this place. You're one person. Do the math. Just go back to Charleston and come back next weekend." I stared at him, at the sheer, dripping audacity of every single word. His family was watching now, some looking a bit uncomfortable, others smirking as if this was prime entertainment. Kevin's mother even shook her head at me, as if I was the one being unreasonable. Something inside me shifted, a fundamental tectonic plate shift. I had spent my entire life being the accommodating one, the sister who didn't make waves, the daughter who kept the peace. I'd loaned Jennifer money when she and Kevin were struggling with their mortgage. I'd babysat their kids countless times without complaint. I'd even helped Kevin's brother move last summer, spending an entire Saturday hauling boxes in 100-degree heat. And this was how they repaid me. I smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the kind of smile that comes when you realize you're done. Done playing nice. Done being taken for granted. "Sure," I said, my voice calm, almost eerily so. "I'm leaving." Kevin looked genuinely surprised, as if he'd expected a bigger fight. More tears, more drama. Good, he grunted. Finally, some sense. I turned toward the door, then paused, my hand on the knob. Just so we're clear, Kevin, I said, looking over my shoulder, you're saying you want me to leave my own property? That's exactly what I'm saying. And Jennifer, I continued, turning to my sister, who still couldn't meet my gaze. You're okay with this? She finally mumbled, her voice barely audible. It's just one weekend, Claire. Don't be dramatic. I nodded slowly, my mind already racing, plotting every single possibility, every single action I needed to take. Okay then, enjoy your weekend. I walked out, leaving the door wide open behind me. As I got into my car, I could hear laughter from inside the house. They thought they'd won. They thought I'd just roll over and accept this humiliation. They had no idea what was coming. I drove exactly 3 minutes down the road before pulling into a gas station parking lot. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from a surge of pure, exhilarating adrenaline. I pulled out my phone and started making calls. First to my lawyer, then to my property manager, then to someone else I'd been hoping I wouldn't need to contact. By the way, if you're still with me, still wondering how this insane story plays out, make sure to hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens next. More unbelievable stories are coming your way. By the time I was done, it was getting dark. I sat in my car, watching the sun sink into the ocean, and allowed myself one moment of doubt. Was I really going to do this? Was I really going to burn every bridge with my sister over a beach house? Then I remembered Kevin's sneering face, the contempt in his voice, the way Jennifer had just stood there and let him humiliate me. Yes, I was absolutely going to do this, and they would regret ever treating me like I didn't matter. Growing up, Jennifer and I had been close. Or at least, I thought we were. She was 3 years older, the firstborn daughter who, in our parents' eyes, could do no wrong. I was the quiet one, the bookish kid who spent more time studying marine life than going to parties. Our parents loved us both, but Jennifer always seemed to shine brighter, to take up more space in every room. I didn't resent it. Not really. I carved out my own path, and I was immensely proud of what I'd accomplished. After getting my doctorate in marine biology, I'd landed a position at the South Carolina Aquarium, where I focused on sea turtle conservation. The work was meaningful, the pay was decent, and I'd managed to save enough to buy the beach house outright when a foreclosure opportunity came up 3 years ago. The house had needed work, lots of it. I'd spent every single weekend for 6 months renovating it, painting walls, replacing fixtures, turning it from a neglected property into something truly beautiful. Jennifer had visited exactly once during that time, looked around for 10 minutes, and said it was cute. That was it. No offer to help, no recognition of the sheer effort I'd put in. Still, I'd given her a spare key. She was my sister. I trusted her. The trust, I now realized, had clearly been misplaced. I checked into a hotel about 20 miles from the beach house, a mid-range chain that was clean and quiet. After settling into the room, I ordered takeout and spread out all my documentation on the bed. Property deed, insurance papers, a copy of the access agreement I'd stupidly signed when Jennifer asked if she could borrow the house, just for emergencies. I'd been too generous, too trusting. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Jennifer. Why are you being so difficult? It's just one weekend. Kevin's family thinks you're crazy. I stared at the message, my jaw clenching. She had the absolute audacity to make me the villain in this situation. She'd given away access to my property without asking. She let her husband scream at me in my own home. And now I was the difficult one. I typed back, "We'll talk about this later." Her response was immediate. "Don't be such a drama queen." I turned off my phone. The next morning, I drove back to Charleston to meet with my lawyer. His name was Gregory, a calm, methodical man in his 50s who we'd worked together when I bought the house. He listened without interrupting as I explained the situation, the humiliation, the sheer disrespect. "So, they're currently occupying your property without your permission?" he asked, taking notes with a careful hand. "Yes, my sister has a key, but I never gave her permission to let other people stay there, especially not for an entire weekend. And your brother-in-law verbally ordered you to leave in front of at least 15 witnesses." Gregory leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. You have several options here. The nuclear option would be to call the police and have them all removed for trespassing. But given that your sister has a key and presumably implied permission to be there, that might get complicated. What's the other option? I asked, a sliver of hope igniting. He smiled slightly, a glint in his eye. We make them very, very uncomfortable. I leaned forward, my pulse quickening. I'm listening. Over the next hour, Gregory laid out a plan that was both elegant and, to me, absolutely devastatingly perfect. It would take some coordination, some quick action, and a willingness to follow through completely. When he finished explaining, he looked at me seriously. Are you sure you want to do this? Once you start down this path, there's no going back. Your relationship with your sister might be permanently damaged. I thought about Jennifer's blank face, the way she'd refused to defend me, the way she'd shrugged off my feelings like they meant nothing. I thought about Kevin's sneer, his arrogant assumption that he could treat me however he wanted because I'd always been too polite to fight back. I'm sure, I said, my voice firm. Then let's get started. By noon, things were in motion. I'd made the necessary calls, signed the necessary documents, and set everything up exactly as Gregory had instructed. The beauty of it was that everything was perfectly legal, perfectly within my rights as the property owner. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was simply enforcing my property rights in a way that Kevin and Jennifer hadn't anticipated. I drove to a coffee shop near the beach, ordered a large iced coffee, and waited. Gregory had told me it would take a few hours for everything to fall into place. I used the time to think about what came next, about how my family would react, about whether I was making a terrible mistake. My phone, which I turned back on, started buzzing with messages. My mother, my father, Jennifer, even Kevin. They were all demanding to know what I was doing, why I was being so unreasonable, why I couldn't just let them have this one weekend. Nobody asked if I was okay. Nobody apologized for what had happened. They just wanted me to back down, to be the accommodating Claire they'd always known. But that Claire was gone. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, my phone rang. It was Gregory. It's done, he said simply. Everything. I asked, my breath hitched. Everything. They should be getting the news right about now. I thanked him and hung up. Then I sat in my car and waited for the explosion I knew was coming. It took exactly 12 minutes. Jennifer's call came first, her voice shrill with panic. Claire, what the hell did you do? The power just went out. And the water. There's no water. I kept my voice calm, almost detached. What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. The utilities are off. Kevin tried to call the power company, and they said the account holder requested a temporary service suspension. Well, I am the account holder, I said reasonably, and I did request that since I'm not using the property this weekend, I saw no reason to keep paying for utilities that unauthorized guests are using. The silence on the other end was deafening. Then, you can't do this. We have 15 people here. Kevin's parents are elderly. You're going to leave them without power or water. I'm not leaving them anywhere. I countered, my voice firm. They're welcome to leave my property anytime they'd like. In fact, that's what Kevin told me to do yesterday, wasn't it? Get the hell out. Well, now they can follow their own advice. This is insane. Mom and Dad are going to hear about this. Good, I said, a cruel satisfaction washing over me. Make sure to tell them how you gave away access to my property without asking, and how Kevin screamed at me to leave my own house. I'm sure they'll be very interested in that part of the story. Jennifer made a strangled sound and hung up. I sat there, feeling a strange mix of emotions. Part of me felt a flicker of guilt, a fleeting thought that perhaps I'd gone too far. But a much larger part of me felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Powerful. I'd spent so many years being the one who compromised, who bent to keep everyone else happy. For once, I was the one calling shots. Kevin called next. His voice was pure, unadulterated rage. You spiteful witch. Do you know what you've done? My mother has a heart condition. She needs to be in a cool environment. Then perhaps you should take her somewhere that has air conditioning, I suggested sweetly. Maybe a hotel. I hear there are several nice ones nearby. This is your fault. You're putting people's health at risk because you're having some kind of tantrum. No, Kevin. I corrected him, my voice colder than ice. You put people's health at risk when you decided to occupy my property without permission and without ensuring you had proper access to utilities. That's on you, not me. Jennifer is going to fix this. She's calling the power company right now. She can call whoever she wants. The utilities are in my name. The house is in my name. And only I can authorize reconnection. And I won't be doing that as long as you're there. We'll sue you for this, he thundered. For what? Exercising my rights as a property owner? Good luck with that. But while we're discussing legal matters, you should know that I filed a formal trespass notice with the county sheriff. You have until 6 o'clock this evening to vacate the property. After that, anyone remaining will be removed by law enforcement. He started to sputter, but I hung up. My parents called together on speakerphone. I could hear the disappointment, the hurt in my mother's voice. Claire, sweetheart, this isn't like you. Can't we all just calm down and work this out? There's nothing to work out, Mom. Jennifer gave away access to my property without asking. Kevin ordered me to leave my own home. I'm simply enforcing my property rights. But it's so extreme, my father interjected, cutting off the power and water, getting the police involved. Can't you just let them finish the weekend? Would you let strangers stay in your house without your permission? I shot back. Jennifer isn't a stranger. She's your sister. A sister who clearly doesn't respect me or my property. She had a chance to apologize, to make this right, and instead she called me dramatic. So no, Dad, I'm not backing down. My mother's voice turned pleading. What about family? What about keeping the peace? What about me? I asked, my voice cracking slightly, raw with years of unspoken frustration. What about the fact that I've been nothing but generous to Jennifer and Kevin? And this is how they treat me? When does someone stand up for me? Neither of them had an answer for that. At 5:30, I drove back to the beach house. I parked down the street where I could see the driveway, but wasn't immediately visible. Cars were loading up, people carrying bags and looking distinctly unhappy. Kevin's father was red-faced and gesturing wildly while talking on his phone. Kevin himself was hauling a cooler to his truck, his expression murderous. Jennifer stood on the porch, her arms wrapped around herself, looking smaller and more defeated than I'd ever seen her. Part of me, a small, residual part, wanted to feel bad for her. We'd grown up together, shared secrets, laughed until we cried. But then I remembered her face yesterday, the way she dismissed my feelings, the way she'd chosen Kevin's convenience over my dignity. Sometimes people showed you who they really were, and you had to believe them. At exactly 6 o'clock, a sheriff's patrol car pulled into the driveway. The deputy got out, spoke briefly with Kevin, and then began ushering people out. There was no drama, no arrests, just a firm insistence that everyone needed to leave immediately. I watched as the last car pulled away, Jennifer in the passenger seat of Kevin's truck, not looking back. The deputy saw my car and walked over. You the property owner? Yes, sir. They're all gone. You'll want to check the property for any damage. Maybe change the locks. Thank you. I will. He nodded and drove away. I sat there for another 10 minutes, letting the reality sink in. I'd done it. I'd actually gone through with it. My family was furious. My sister probably hated me, and I'd burned bridges I could never rebuild. But as I pulled into my own driveway, as I unlocked my own door and stepped into my own house, I felt something unexpected. Relief. For the first time in years, I'd stood up for myself, and it felt damn good. The house was a disaster. I walked through slowly, documenting everything with my phone camera. Red wine stains on the white living room carpet, cigarette burns on the deck railing, even though I had a clear no-smoking policy. The kitchen was a wreck of dirty dishes, empty beer bottles, and what looked like someone's failed attempt at cooking shrimp. The shells scattered across my granite countertops. But it was the upstairs that made my blood boil. Someone had been in my bedroom, in my private space. The bed was unmade, sheets that I'd carefully washed and pressed now twisted and stained. My closet door hung open, and I could see that someone had gone through my things. A jewelry box I kept on my dresser was open, and I immediately checked for my grandmother's pearl necklace. It was gone. I stood there staring at the empty velvet space where it should have been and felt something crack inside me. That necklace was the only thing I'd left from my grandmother. The woman who'd actually understood me, who'd encouraged my love of science when everyone else thought it was weird. She'd given it to me on her deathbed, pressed it into my hand, and told me to stay curious, stay strong. And now it was gone. I called Jennifer immediately. She answered on the fourth ring, her voice weary. What now, Claire? My grandmother's pearl necklace is missing. Someone stole it. That's ridiculous. Nobody stole anything. It was in my jewelry box yesterday, and now it's gone. It was in my bedroom. I don't know. Maybe you misplaced it. My laugh was bitter, devoid of humor. Right. I misplaced a necklace that never leaves my dresser. Jennifer, I'm filing a police report. You wouldn't dare. Watch me. Either that necklace reappears by tomorrow morning, or I'm pressing charges against everyone who was in this house. I have names. I have photos. I will make this as public and as ugly as necessary. She was quiet for a moment. Then, you've changed, Claire. You used to be nice. No, Jennifer. I used to be a doormat. There's a difference. I hung up and immediately called the non-emergency police line. An officer arrived within the hour, a woman named Deputy Walsh, who took my statement and photographed the damage. She was professional, sympathetic, and when I mentioned the missing necklace, her expression hardened. Do you have photos of it? Insurance documentation? I have both, and I have a list of everyone who was in the house. Good. We need all of that. I'll be honest with you, though. Proving who specifically took it will be difficult unless someone confesses or we find it in their possession. I understand. After she left, I spent 3 hours cleaning, scrubbing wine stains, washing sheets, disinfecting surfaces that strangers had touched. With every swipe of the sponge, my anger grew. This wasn't just about a weekend anymore. This was about disrespect so profound that it felt personal, calculated. My phone buzzed constantly. Jennifer, Kevin, my mother, even Kevin's mother apparently had gotten my number and left a voicemail about how I'd ruined their family gathering and should be ashamed of myself. I listened to each message. Once, then deleted them. Around midnight, as I was finally finishing up, my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Claire, it's Melissa. Melissa, Kevin's younger sister. We'd actually gotten along during the few times we'd met, though I hadn't seen her in over a year. Melissa, hi. Look, I heard about what happened this weekend, and I just wanted to say I'm sorry. What Kevin did was completely out of line. I sank onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. Thank you. That means a lot. He's always been like this, entitled. My parents spoiled him rotten, and Jennifer just enables it. I wasn't at the beach house, thank God, but my mom called me ranting about you. And when I actually got the full story, I was disgusted. Did you know about the necklace? She paused. What necklace? I explained about my grandmother's pearls. Melissa swore softly. Claire, I hate to tell you this, but Kevin's been having money problems, bad ones. He made some investments that went south, and he's been scrambling to cover losses. Jennifer doesn't even know how bad it is. My stomach dropped. You think he took it? I don't know, but he's desperate enough that I wouldn't put it past him. He's been trying to borrow money from everyone in the family. After we hung up, I sat in the dark processing this information. Kevin was broke. That explained why Jennifer had been pushing me to lend her money again last month, a request I declined after never being paid back from the previous loan. It explained why they'd been so eager to use my beach house instead of renting their own place. But stealing from me, that was a line I'd never imagined they'd cross. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and twice as many text messages. Most were from family members demanding I drop the police report, saying I was tearing the family apart, that I needed to forgive and forget. Not one person apologized for what had been done to me. I was drinking coffee on the deck, watching the sunrise over the ocean when a car pulled into the driveway. Jennifer, she got out slowly, looking like she hadn't slept. We need to talk, she called up to me. I didn't move. So talk. She climbed the deck stairs, and I could see she'd been crying. Her eyes were red and puffy. Her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. This was the sister I'd grown up with, the one I'd shared a room with until I left for college, the one who'd braided my hair and taught me how to apply eyeliner, the one who'd thrown all of that away for her husband's convenience. I'm sorry, she said, the words sounding forced, like she'd practiced them. I should have asked before giving Kevin the keys. I should have stood up for you when he told you to leave. Yes, you should have. But Claire, you've taken this too far. The police? Really? You're going to destroy Kevin over a necklace. A necklace that belonged to our grandmother. That was all I had left of her. It's just jewelry. It can be replaced. No, Jennifer, it can't. And the fact that you don't understand, that tells me everything I need to know about where we stand. She stepped closer, her expression shifting to something harder, a hint of her old self-righteousness. If you pursue this, if you press charges, Kevin could lose his job. He worked for the city. A theft charge would ruin him. Then he shouldn't have stolen from me. You don't even know if he took it. It could have been anyone. Then tell him to prove his innocence. Let him turn out his pockets, his car, his house. If he has nothing to hide, he should have no problem with that. Jennifer's face flushed. You're being unreasonable. I'm being unreasonable. I'm not the one who stole. I'm not the one who violated someone's trust and home. That was your husband, Jennifer. That was you, by enabling him. Fine, she spat, her voice laced with venom. Fine. You want to play hardball? Let's play. Mom and Dad are selling their lake house. They were going to leave it to both of us when they died, but guess what? They're changing their will. Everything goes to me now. You're cut out completely. The words should have hurt. A month ago, they would have devastated me. But standing there, looking at my sister's twisted, vindictive expression, I felt nothing but a cold, clear certainty. If that's what they want to do, that's their choice. But Jennifer, understand this. I'm done. I'm done being the backup plan, the reliable one, the one who gets walked all over because I'm too nice to fight back. You made your choice. Now live with it. She stared at me for a long moment, her eyes blazing, then turned and walked away. I watched her drive off, and I didn't cry. I didn't feel sad. I just felt free. 3 days after Jennifer's visit, I got a call from Deputy Walsh. Miss Claire, we've had a development in your case. Can you come down to the station? I drove there immediately, my heart pounding with a mix of dread and anticipation. Deputy Walsh met me in a small conference room, and she wasn't alone. A detective sat across from her, a middle-aged man with kind eyes and a firm handshake. I'm Detective Barnes. I understand you reported theft. Yes, my grandmother's pearl necklace. He opened a folder. We received an interesting call yesterday. Anonymous tip saying we should check a pawn shop in North Charleston. We followed up, and we found your necklace. I gasped. You found it. We did. The pawn shop owner provided us with security footage and the name of the person who pawned it. He slid a photograph across the table. It was Kevin. I stared at the image, my brother-in-law's face caught clearly on camera as he handed over my grandmother's necklace for cash. The timestamp showed it was from Saturday evening, just hours after he'd left my beach house. That's him, I said, my voice hollow, filled with a strange sense of vindication and sorrow. That's my brother-in-law. Detective Barnes nodded. We've issued a warrant for his arrest. Grand larceny. Given the necklace's appraised value of $4,000, he'll be picked up within the next 24 hours for $1,000. I'd had it appraised 2 years ago for insurance purposes, never imagining I'd need that information for something like this. What happens now? Now we build a case. The pawn shop footage is strong evidence. And we have your testimony about who had access to the property. If he doesn't have a solid explanation for how he came to possess your necklace, this will likely go to trial. I left the station feeling numb. This was really happening. Kevin was going to be arrested. My family was going to implode. And somehow, I'd become the villain in all of this, the one who couldn't just let things go. My phone rang before I even made it back to my car. My mother, her voice shaking. Claire, what have you done? Hello to you too, Mom. The police just called Jennifer. They're arresting Kevin. They said you pressed charges. How could you do this to your own family? I got in my car, closed the door, and took a deep breath. Mom, Kevin stole from me. He took something irreplaceable and pawned it for cash. What did you expect me to do? Let it go. Family is more important than things, isn't it? Because from where I'm standing, I said, my voice sharp, Kevin didn't think family was important when he was stealing from me. Jennifer didn't think family was important when she gave away my house without asking. And you don't think family is important enough to even ask if I'm okay? If I'm hurt by all of this? Of course you're hurt, but you're making it worse. Kevin has 2 children. You're going to put their father in jail. No, Mom. Kevin put himself there when he decided to commit a felony. I didn't steal the necklace. He did. Claire Marie, I am your mother, and I'm telling you to drop these charges right now. Something in me snapped. Or what? You'll cut me out of the will? Jennifer already told me you're doing that anyway. You'll stop talking to me? Fine. Do it. Because I'm done pretending that being family means I have to accept being treated like garbage. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. I hung up, and this time I blocked her number. Then I blocked Jennifer's, then Kevin's. One by one, I went through my contacts and blocked every family member who'd sent me hateful messages over the past few days. The silence that followed was deafening, but also strangely peaceful. That evening, I was back at the beach house, sitting on the deck with a glass of wine, watching the stars begin to emerge. When I heard footsteps on the stairs, I tensed, reaching for my phone to call 911 if needed. But it was just Melissa. I'm sorry for just showing up, she said, her voice soft. I tried calling, but it went straight to voicemail. I've been blocking a lot of numbers lately, I replied, a small, wry smile touching my lips. She gave me a sad smile back. I can imagine. Can I sit? I gestured to the chair next to me, and she sank into it with a sigh. Kevin was arrested this morning. Jennifer is losing her mind. My parents are furious, and the entire family has basically declared you enemy number one. I figured as much. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. Kevin's always gotten away with everything because people are afraid of upsetting him. It's about time someone held him accountable. That seems to be a minority opinion. Only among people who benefit from Kevin's bad behavior. The rest of us have been waiting for something like this. She paused. Claire, there's something you should know. Kevin's in deeper trouble than just the necklace. I looked at her, my eyebrows raised. What do you mean? When he got arrested, Jennifer went through his office. She found documents, bank statements, emails. Kevin's been embezzling from his job. Not a lot at once, but over the past 2 years, he's taken almost $50,000. I felt my jaw drop. $50,000? He was covering it up by manipulating expense reports and vendor payments. But now that he's been arrested, his employer is doing an audit. They're going to find everything. Does Jennifer know? She knows, and she's trying to decide whether to divorce him or stand by him. My parents are pressuring her to stay, to support her husband through this difficult time. But Claire, I think she's finally seeing him for what he is. We sat in silence for a moment, watching the waves roll in. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. What's going to happen to him? I asked, a weariness creeping into my voice. Prison, probably. Between the theft from you and the embezzlement, he's looking at serious time. His lawyer's talking about a plea deal, but it's not looking good. And his kids. Jennifer's moving back in with our parents. The house is going into foreclosure. Kevin never told her how bad their finances were. She thought they were fine, but it turns out they're drowning in debt. I should have felt vindicated. I should have felt like justice was being served, a triumphant surge of satisfaction. Instead, I just felt tired. This whole situation had spiraled so far beyond a stolen weekend at a beach house. Lives were being destroyed. Families were fracturing. And I was at the center of it all. Do you think I did the wrong thing? I asked Melissa. She looked at me, her expression serious and unwavering. No, I think you did the only thing you could do. Kevin needed to face consequences. If it hadn't been you, it would have been someone else eventually. Better it happened now, before he stole even more. Before he hurt even more people. My parents hate me. They'll get over it, or they won't. But Claire, you can't set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. You deserve respect. You deserve to be treated like your feelings matter. I don't feel like I won anything. Maybe you didn't win, but you didn't lose either. You stood up for yourself. That's worth something. The next few weeks passed in a blur of legal proceedings and family drama that I deliberately kept myself distant from. Kevin's arrest made the local news, which meant everyone knew what had happened. The marine biology community in Charleston is small, and I found myself fielding awkward questions from colleagues and dealing with uncomfortable conversations in the break room. I heard your brother-in-law got arrested. My research partner said one morning, trying to sound casual. He did. That must be hard. It is what it is. I kept my head down and focused on my work. We were in the middle of sea turtle nesting season, which meant long hours monitoring beaches and protecting eggs from predators. The work was exhausting but grounding. There was something clarifying about spending your days focused on preservation and life cycles on species that had survived for millions of years by adapting to change. I needed to adapt too. Deputy Walsh called me on a Thursday afternoon with an update. Kevin's lawyer had reached out about the necklace case, wanting to negotiate a plea deal that would involve restitution and probation. The embezzlement case was going to trial, but the theft charge could potentially be settled. What do you think? I asked her. It's up to you. If you want to pursue this criminally, we have a strong case. But if you'd accept restitution and a formal admission of guilt, that's an option too. I thought about it. Did I want to see Kevin go to prison for stealing from me on top of whatever he'd face for the embezzlement? Did I want that level of revenge? What would restitution look like? He'd have to pay you the full appraised value of the necklace plus damages for the other property damage at your beach house. And he'd have guilty in court, which would go on his record. Let me think about it. That evening, I got an unexpected visitor. Jennifer showed up at my apartment in Charleston, looking hollow. She'd lost weight, her cheekbones sharp beneath her eyes, and she seemed to have aged 5 years in the past month. Can I come in? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. I almost said no, but something about her expression, the utter defeat in her posture, made me step aside. She walked into my living room, sat on my couch, and immediately started crying. Not delicate tears, but the kind of sobbing that comes from somewhere deep and broken, a primal outpouring of grief and regret. I stood there awkwardly, not sure what to do. Finally, I sat down beside her and waited. I'm sorry, she gasped out between sobs. I'm so sorry, Claire. You were right about everything. About Kevin, about me, about all of it. Jennifer, I began, my voice softer than I intended. Oh, let me say this. I was a terrible sister. I chose Kevin over you repeatedly, and I convinced myself it was okay because he was my husband and you were always so strong, so capable. I thought you didn't need me the way he did. I didn't need you. I confessed, the truth aching in my chest. I needed you to have my back. I know that now. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Kevin's lawyer showed me everything. The embezzlement, the gambling debts, the lies. He's been lying to me for 2 years. We're losing the house. My credit is destroyed. His parents are furious at me for considering divorce. And Mom and Dad are acting like I'm the one who did something wrong by being upset. I didn't say anything. What was there to say? The necklace, she continued, her voice trembling. He told me he found it at a pawn shop, that he was going to surprise you by buying it back. I actually believed him. I defended him to you. And the whole time, he was the one who took it. She looked at me, her eyes brimming with fresh tears. I know. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if I deserve forgiveness, but I needed to tell you that I see it now. I see what I did, what I enabled, and I'm sorry. We sat there in silence for a long time. Finally, I spoke. I forgive you. She looked at me, startled. What? I forgive you. Not because what you did was okay, and not because we could just go back to how things were, but because holding on to anger is exhausting. And I'm tired. You're my sister. I love you. But loving you doesn't mean I have to accept being treated badly. Fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. But these were different. Less despair. More release. What do we do now? Now you figure out your life. You decide if you're staying with Kevin or leaving him. You rebuild. And I do the same. Can I call you sometimes? She asked, her voice small. I thought about it carefully. Yes, but Jennifer, things are different now. I'm not going to be your backup bank account or your free babysitter or the person you only remember exists when you need something. If we're going to have a relationship, it has to be equal. It has to be honest. Understand, she whispered, and I'll do better. I promise. After she left, I called Deputy Walsh and told her I'd accept the plea deal for the necklace case. Kevin would plead guilty, pay restitution, and have it on his record. That felt like enough. The embezzlement case would proceed without my involvement. And whatever happened there was between Kevin and his employer. 2 weeks later, I stood in my beach house, which I'd had professionally deep cleaned and restored. New carpet in the living room, fresh paint on the walls, new locks on every door. I'd even installed a security system that would alert me if anyone tried to enter without authorization. The house felt clean again. Mine again. I was making coffee in the kitchen when my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but something made me answer. Claire, this is Melissa. I hope it's okay that I'm calling. Of course. What's up? I want to let you know that Kevin took a plea deal on the embezzlement case. 2 years in minimum security, 5 years probation. After that, Jennifer filed for divorce yesterday. How's she doing? I asked, genuinely curious. Better than expected. She moved into a small apartment, got a job as a medical receptionist. Mom and Dad are barely speaking to her because she's not standing by Kevin, but honestly, I think she's better off without their input. And you? How are you doing? I'm okay. Actually, I wanted to ask you something. I'm planning a girls' weekend next month. Just me and a couple of friends. Nothing fancy. Would you maybe want to come? No family drama, I promise. Just beach time and good company. I looked out at the ocean, at the waves rolling endlessly toward shore. I like that, I said. I'd really like that. After we hung up, I took my coffee out to the deck and sat in the morning sun. My phone buzzed with a text from my research partner asking if I wanted to grab lunch. Then another from a colleague inviting me to a conference next month. My life was moving forward. Not the life I'd planned, not the family structure I'd always assumed would be there, but something new, something that was entirely mine. I thought about my grandmother, about what she'd told me with her dying breath. Stay curious. Stay strong. I'd done both. I'd stayed strong when it would have been easier to fold. I'd stayed curious about what life could look like when you stopped accepting scraps of respect and demanded what you deserved. The necklace was back in my jewelry box upstairs, cleaned and polished. But I'd learned something over these past weeks. I didn't need it to remember my grandmother's lessons. They were already part of me, woven into every decision I'd made, every boundary I'd enforced. I'd lost a family that never truly valued me. But I found something more important, myself. 6 months after Kevin's arrest, I received a letter from the district attorney's office. Kevin's embezzlement trial had concluded, and he'd been sentenced to 3 years in state prison with the possibility of parole after 18 months. The restitution he owed his employer exceeded $200,000, a debt that would follow him for the rest of his life. I read the letter twice, then filed it away in a drawer I rarely opened. Life had moved on in ways I hadn't expected. The beach house had become my true sanctuary, a place where I spent almost every weekend. I'd started inviting colleagues and friends down, hosting small gatherings that were nothing like the chaotic invasion Kevin's family had staged. These were evenings of good wine, intelligent conversation, and laughter that felt earned rather than forced. Melissa had become a genuine friend. She brought her friends for that weekend she'd mentioned, and we'd all clicked immediately. Through her, I'd met people who valued authenticity over family obligation, who understood that sometimes the healthiest thing you could do was walk away from toxicity. Jennifer and I spoke occasionally, brief phone calls where she updated me on her life. She'd completed a medical coding certification program and gotten a better job at a hospital. Her kids were adjusting to the divorce, seeing Kevin during supervised visits arranged through the prison. She'd stopped trying to justify his behavior or minimize what he'd done. I was so busy defending him that I forgot to ask if he deserved defending, she'd told me during one call. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. Our parents had eventually reached out. Awkward phone calls where they danced around apologies without actually making any. I'd listened politely and kept the conversation short. Forgiveness was one thing. Forgetting was another entirely. But it was a Tuesday afternoon in October when everything came full circle. I was at the aquarium giving a presentation to a group of marine biology students when my phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. I ignored it, focusing on explaining sea turtle migration patterns. The call came again during my lunch break. Hello, Claire. This is Attorney Hoffman. I represent Kevin in his criminal cases. I almost hung up. Why would I want to speak to him? I'm calling because he's requested to speak with you. Why? He says he has information you need to hear about the weekend at your beach house. He says there's more to the story than what came out in court. There's nothing he could tell me that I need to know, I said flatly, already turning to walk away. He specifically mentioned your parents and Jennifer. He says they were more involved than you realize. That gave me pause. Involved in what? He wouldn't tell me details. He insists on speaking to you directly. You're under no obligation, of course, but I promised I'd pass along his request. I thought about it for a long moment. If I agree to this, it's by phone only. I'm not visiting him in prison. Understood. I can arrange a monitored call through the facility. When will work for you? We scheduled it for the following week. The call came through on Friday evening. I was at the beach house, sitting on the deck with a glass of wine, watching the sunset. The prison operator connected us, and then Kevin's voice came through, hollow and tired. Claire, thank you for taking my call. I'm here. Talk. He was quiet for a moment. I need you to understand something. What I did was wrong. Stealing from you, lying to Jennifer, the embezzlement, all of it was wrong. And I'm not making excuses, but that weekend at your beach house, that wasn't just my idea. What are you talking about? I asked, a sudden chill creeping up my spine despite the warm evening air. Your parents planned it. Mom knew you were coming down that weekend. She specifically told Jennifer to give me the keys and invite my family. Told her to make sure I'd confront you. My blood ran cold. You're lying. I'm not. Your mother has hated that you have money, that you have this house, that you succeeded without their help. She thought if I humiliated you enough, you'd sell the beach house and split the money with Jennifer. She told me exactly what to say, how to push your buttons. The whole thing was staged. That's insane. Is it? Think about it, Claire. Why would Jennifer just hand over keys to your house without asking? Why was my entire family ready to go that specific weekend? Your mother set it up because she wanted you to feel small, to remember your place in the family hierarchy. I stood up, pacing the deck, my mind reeling. Even if that's true, you still stole from me. You still took my grandmother's necklace. I did, and that part was all me. I admit it. I was desperate for money, and I saw an opportunity, but I want you to know the truth about how we ended up there in the first place. Your parents used me as a weapon against you, and I was stupid enough to go along with it. Why are you telling me this now? Because I've had a lot of time to think and hear about the person I was, the choices I made, and because I think you deserve to know that the people you're trying to rebuild relationships with were the ones who orchestrated the whole thing. After the call ended, I sat in the darkness, my wine untouched, processing what I'd heard. If Kevin was telling the truth, and his lawyer's presence on the call suggested he was being honest, then my parents hadn't just failed to defend me. They'd actively set me up to be humiliated. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to my mother's contact. I'd unblocked her number months ago, but hadn't used it. Now I press call. My mother answered on the third ring, her voice cautious. Claire, is that you? It's me. We need to talk. Oh, sweetheart. I'm so glad you called. Your father and I have been wanting to reach out, but we weren't sure if you were ready. Were you involved in planning the beach house incident? Silence. A heavy, telling silence. What? I don't know what you're talking about. Kevin called me today. He told me you and Dad orchestrated that entire weekend, that you specifically told Jennifer to give him the keys to make sure I'd show up and be confronted. Is that true? More silence, then a hesitant. Kevin is a criminal and a liar. You can't believe anything he says. Answer the question, Mom. Did you plan it? I may have suggested to Jennifer that the house was sitting empty and Kevin's family needed a place to stay. I didn't think you'd actually show up that weekend. You knew I was coming. Jennifer told you at your birthday dinner. Well, I thought you'd be reasonable about it. I thought you'd understand that family needed the space more than you did. I laughed. A harsh, humorless sound. You set me up. You wanted Kevin to embarrass me, to make me feel small enough that I'd do whatever you asked. That's not Claire. You have to understand. We were worried about you. You've been so distant, so focused on your career. We thought maybe if you saw how much family meant, how much Jennifer and her family needed support, you thought you'd manipulate me into giving up my property. That's what this was about. It's just a beach house, Claire. Jennifer has children. She has actual needs. You're single. You don't have kids. You don't need what? I interrupted, my voice trembling with suppressed fury. Respect? Boundaries? My own property that I worked hard to afford. You're being dramatic. No, Mom. I'm being clear. You used me. You've always used me. I was the responsible one, the one who had her act together. So you took me for granted while you fawned over Jennifer and her mess of a life. And when I finally stood up for myself, You punished me for it. We did no such thing. We simply prioritized Jennifer's needs during a difficult time. By humiliating me? By stealing from me? Kevin stole from you. That had nothing to do with us. But you created the situation that made it possible. You opened the door, Mom. You put me in a position where I was vulnerable and alone in my own house, surrounded by people who'd been told I was the problem. Do you have any idea how that felt? I think you're overreacting. I'm done. What? I'm done with this conversation. Done with your excuses. Done with your version of family where I'm only valuable when I'm useful to you. Jennifer is trying to build a real relationship with me. One based on honesty and mutual respect. But you can't even admit what you did, Claire Marie. You don't mean that. I absolutely do. Don't call me again. Don't show up at my house. We're done. I hung up before she could respond. And this time, I blocked the number for good. My hands were shaking. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach, all the air knocked out of my lungs. But underneath the shock was something else. Clarity. For years, I thought I was the problem. I'd internalized their criticism, their dismissal, their constant message that I needed to be more accommodating, more generous, more willing to sacrifice. I believed that being a good daughter, a good sister, meant accepting whatever they dished out. But it had all been manipulation. They'd seen my success, my independence, and instead of being proud, they'd been threatened. They'd wanted to cut me down to size, to remind me that I wasn't really better than them just because I had a doctorate and a beach house and a life I'd built on my own terms. Well, I'd reminded them instead. I'd shown them that respect wasn't negotiable, that family was a privilege, not a right, and that I was perfectly capable of walking away from people who hurt me. The next morning, I drove to Jennifer's apartment. She answered the door in yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt, looking surprised to see me. Claire, is everything okay? Can I come in? We sat at her small kitchen table, and I told her everything Kevin had said. Her face went through a series of emotions: shock, denial, and finally a resigned sadness. I suspected, she admitted quietly. Mom pushed so hard for me to use your house that weekend. She kept saying you wouldn't mind, that you owed us after all the years of support. I knew it was wrong, but I went along with it because it was easier than arguing. She looked up, her eyes raw. She used both of us. I know. I see that now. Jennifer looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. I called her last night after you did. She tried to convince me you were being dramatic, but I didn't let her. I told her what she did was unforgivable, that she damaged both her daughters by playing us against each other. And what did you say? She cried and said I was choosing you over her. I said I was choosing honesty over manipulation. Then I hung up. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Jennifer reached across the table and took my hand. I'm sorry I wasn't the sister you deserved. I'm sorry I let them use me as a weapon against you. I'm sorry too, I said, squeezing her hand, for all of it. Can we start over? She squeezed my hand back. We're already starting. A year after that phone call with Kevin, my life looked nothing like I'd imagined it would. The beach house had become something of a hub for my extended friend group. I'd hosted Melissa's birthday party there, several research team retreats, and even a small wedding for one of my colleagues. The property that my parents had seen as something to exploit had become a symbol of the life I'd built, one based on genuine connections rather than obligatory family ties. Jennifer had thrived in ways that surprised both of us. She'd been promoted twice at the hospital, moved into a better apartment, and started dating a kind man who worked as a physical therapist. Her kids were happy, well-adjusted, and on the rare occasions I saw them, they called me Aunt Claire with genuine affection. Kevin had been released on parole after serving 16 months. I'd heard through Melissa that he was working at a warehouse, living in a halfway house, and sending Jennifer his meager child support payments on time. He'd written me a letter apologizing again, which I'd read once and then filed away. I didn't hate him anymore. I just didn't think about him at all. My parents had tried reaching out several times through relatives, always with the same message. I was being stubborn. I needed to forgive and move on. Couldn't I see I was tearing the family apart? Each time I sent back the same response through whoever had contacted me. I'd moved on just fine. And if the family was falling apart, perhaps they should examine why that was. The lake house they'd threatened to cut me out of? They'd sold it 6 months ago to cover debts I'd never known they had. Apparently, They've been living beyond their means for years, keeping up appearances while secretly drowning. Without my financial safety net, the emergency loans I'd always provided, the gifts I'd given, they'd finally hit bottom. I felt no satisfaction in their struggles, just a quiet acknowledgement that everyone's choices had consequences, including mine. It was a Saturday in November when I got the call that changed everything. I was at the beach house with Melissa and 3 other friends, preparing for a small Thanksgiving gathering we'd planned. "Claire, it's Jennifer. Dad had a heart attack. He's at Charleston Memorial." I went alone, telling my friends to continue with dinner preparations. The hospital was bright and sterile, and I found Jennifer in the cardiac unit waiting room, looking utterly exhausted. "How is he?" "Stable. They did emergency surgery. He's going to be okay. But Claire, he's asking for you." "Where's Mom?" "In with him now. She doesn't know I called you." I sat down next to my sister. "I don't know if I can do this. I'm not asking you to forgive him or pretend everything's fine. But he almost died tonight, and he's scared. Whatever he did, whatever Mom did, he's still our father." I thought about that, about the man who taught me to ride a bike, who'd been so proud when I got into college, who'd slowly transformed into someone I didn't recognize as he'd aged. Where had that transformation started? When had prioritizing appearances over authenticity become more important than his own daughter's well-being? "5 minutes," I said. "I'll give him 5 minutes." My mother was leaving the room as I approached. She stopped when she saw me, her face cycling through surprise, anger, and something that might have been shame. "Claire, Mom, you came." Jennifer called me. We stood in the hallway, 2 women who'd once been so close and were now effectively strangers. "I'm glad you're here," she said finally, her voice stiff. "He needs to see you." I walked past her without responding. My father looked small in the hospital bed, diminished by wires and monitors. His eyes opened when I entered, and something like relief crossed his face. "Claire, you came." "I came. I'm sorry." His voice was weak but clear. "For everything. For not protecting you. For going along with your mother's schemes. For choosing comfort over doing what was right." "I'm sorry." I pulled up a chair and sat down. "Why did you do it? Why did you let Mom manipulate all of us?" "Because it was easier. Because saying no to her meant conflict, and I've always hated conflict." I told myself I was keeping the peace. But really, I was just being a coward. "You hurt me, Dad, badly. I know, and I can't undo it. But I can tell you that watching you walk away, watching you build a life without us, taught me something. You were braver than I ever was. You chose integrity over comfort, and I should have done that years ago." We talked for 20 minutes, and while it didn't fix everything, it felt like a start. Not a reconciliation exactly, but an acknowledgement. He couldn't undo the past, and I couldn't forget it. But maybe we could find something new to build on. When I left the hospital, my mother was waiting in the hallway. "Thank you for going in," she said stiffly. "I didn't do it for you." "I know, but Claire, I need to say something. I was wrong about everything. I let jealousy and insecurity turn me into someone I don't recognize, and I hurt you because of it. I don't expect forgiveness, but I needed you to know that I see what I did." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw someone who'd spent so much energy controlling others that she'd lost herself. She looked older, tired, defeated. "I appreciate you saying that," I said, my voice gentle but firm. "But Mom, it's going to take more than words. It's going to take time and change and consistent effort. If you're willing to do that, then maybe someday we can figure out what our relationship looks like, but it won't ever be what it was." "Understand." I drove back to the beach house where my friends were waiting with warm food and warmer smiles. They asked if I was okay, and I realized I was. Not perfect, not completely healed, but okay. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat on the deck alone and thought about the journey that had started with me being screamed at in my own home. I'd lost a lot. The family I thought I had, the naive belief that blood always meant loyalty, the comfort of not making waves. But I gained more. Self-respect, genuine friendships, a sister who was finally becoming someone I could trust, and most importantly, I'd gained the knowledge that I could stand up for myself and survive, thrive, even. Kevin served out his parole period, working minimum wage jobs. His career and reputation destroyed beyond repair. His relationship with his children remained strained, limited to supervised visits that highlighted everything he'd lost through his choices. The embezzlement conviction followed him everywhere, ensuring he'd never work in finance or city government again. He'd sold everything of value to pay restitution, living in a dingy apartment with secondhand furniture, a permanent reminder of how far he'd fallen. My parents eventually downsized to a small condo, their retirement dreams shattered by debt and the loss of both daughters' support. They attended therapy at Jennifer's insistence, slowly beginning to understand the toxicity they'd created, though the easy relationship they'd once taken for granted was gone forever. As for me, I learned that sometimes the strongest revenge isn't about destruction. It's about building something beautiful in the ruins they tried to create. I'd set out to teach Kevin a lesson about respect and boundaries. But in the end, I'd learned the greatest lesson myself, that my worth wasn't determined by how I was treated, but by how I chose to respond. Looking back at that moment, when Kevin had screamed at me to leave my own home, I could see it for what it really was. Not an ending, but a beginning. The beginning of a life where I finally put myself first. This journey taught me so much about family, boundaries, and finding your own voice. What would you have done in my place? Have you ever had to draw a hard line with your own family? Let me know in the comments below. I really want to hear what you think.